Uh, I guess we talked about earlier. He'd asked me to come. Brother Clifton had asked me to come up when we were here to speak, and I don't know about the rest of you preachers, but I have a hard time preaching to a bunch of preachers. I can preach to kids. I can preach to. I lost my notes. Anyway, I can preach to a lot of people, but when you start preaching to a bunch of preachers, it's hard to do. It is for me. It's the hardest I have. The most trouble I have is preaching to a bunch of men that I know way more than I do about things. So. Hey, Reggie. Oh, come on now. I always brag at church that I never have trouble with anybody hearing me.
Sound system's not working.
It's old age now. Often in our lives, I've actually been working on this message for 2 weeks, and last Sunday I just got up in the morning and kind of pitched my sermon, and because this seemed like that's what God wanted me to preach, and so I preached partially on this. I got carried away, rabbit trails, but anyway, sometimes we can think on our that we can make it on our own. I don't know about you all, but there's a lot of times in my life that I kind of disregard God, and I say, well, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to do the other, and then I figure out I can't do it. And just a short time ago, well, I was in Maryland on a mission trip when all this flooding happened, and I about lost my sister, and she lost her house. Her daughter lost her house. I lost our church. We lost our church, and all these things. The reason I went to these verses, I found these verses, and I walked in the church that morning. That next day, what you could walk in. I mean, mud almost over your muck boots. And when I walked in, it was just like, how, I started in 1987 with just a few people in a little bitty building, probably 20 by 20. I felt like I was further back now than I was then, except I had a few more people. And I thought, there's no way I can get through this. How can I get back to where we were? And then I got thinking about, I often wonder, how and why in the world would God pick somebody like me to pastor Victory Baptist Church? When I look around the county, I see men that are way more qualified, way more better personalities, better speakers, and then all of a sudden God tells me, you're going to pastor. And I don't know why, but I picked this verse. You don't give me just a minute. Let me read the verses, and I'll try to get hurry. I don't know how to do it, and it says Ahab in chapter 19, 1 Kings. Elijah had you all know the story. He had went to Mount Carmel and had God had showed him miracles and had taken his sacrifice over Baal's sacrifice, and anyway he had prayed that God would shut up the skies, and God shut up the skies, and he prayed that God would open up the skies, and God opened up the skies, and I get to thinking about all that, and I think, well, how in the world would a man that have miracles like that ever be afraid of anybody or anything? But anyway, here, and he tells in chapter 19, he says, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and withal how he'd slain all the prophets with the sword. And then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, said, well, let the gods do to me, and more also, if I make not thy life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. She was telling him, I'm going to kill you. That basically is what I take out of that. I'm going to kill you. And when he saw that, he arose and fled. Elijah, Elijah, this man that did miracles that only God gave to. I mean, just bless him with. And he said he fled, And he went for his life and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah at that time, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, came and sat down under a juniper tree, and requested for himself that he might die. Now, there's what I wanted to talk about. I don't know about you, and maybe nobody has ever thought this, but there's been times, and lately, there's been times when I've just stuck my hands and said, Lord, I'd be better off in heaven. I mean, I'm discouraged. I'm depressed. I don't know which way to turn. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough finances. I don't have enough people. I'll never get back to where we were. Why would this all happen to us? And I got to thinking about, Moses did the same thing. Jonah did the same thing. Job did the same thing. All of them got discouraged at a time in their life when, I don't know why this happened, but we all remember 8:28. We know Romans 8:28. We know that. But there's times in our life when I still don't understand why God picked me to lead that church. I don't know. I was tickled to death to stick up my hand on the front row whenever my pastor needed anything. I wanted to beat everybody. I wanted to be the man that jumped up and said, I want to do that before anybody else has a chance to. I was satisfied. And that was the problem, I guess. But why did he do that? But I was reminded when I was reading this, last night I was going back over these things, and Alex Haley, and a lot of you fellows probably know this, but Alex Haley, the writer of Roots, and that movie and also the book, was once asked why he had a picture of a turtle on the fence post. You all know where I'm going with this. He said, I'm reminded that I've never been alone, that everything that I ever do and everything I've ever been, there's always somebody behind me lifting me up, and I can't do it alone. So you have to remember that, Elijah, I honestly don't think Elijah wanted to die, or he'd have just stayed and let Jezebel kill him. And I don't think Jezebel wanted to kill him. She was just wanted him out of her hair. She wanted him because she was afraid of a revival, is what I believe. I might be wrong, and that's not what the Bible says, but I think that. But he said he went himself into the journey and requested that he might die. And he said, and it's now enough, Lord, that you just take away my life, for I'm not better than my fathers. And he lay down and he slept under a juniper tree. Behold, an angel touched him, said, arise and eat. And he looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals. Well, can you imagine an angel coming cooking for you? And giving you to drink? I can't even imagine what that would be like. And he laid down again, and he came again the second time, touched him, and said, now, you eat, and because the journey is too great for thee. But I think that a lot of times we need help from people. I think that a lot of times that we look for the wrong help at the wrong place with the wrong people. I think that a lot of times we try to look for secular help when we need to be looking for help within our church and within the people around us. But all these things he was just discouraged, and you look around. I've been there, and I know what he was going. But sometimes God has to give you discernment to decide which way you want to go, who you want to listen to, and how you want to go about these things. And I wanted to show you a couple of things here in just a minute. But one thing he did was when after he asked God to take his life, and after he went out and the angel touched him and cooked for him, and I say that a while ago about the angel, but I've got an angel that cooks for me sometimes. I got to throw in get some brownie points while I'm here. I forgot to say that a while ago, but I think about Jonah, who would rather die than see somebody repent and be saved. I mean, I've never been that bad, really. But really, there have been people that I said, Lord, why in the world are you speaking to these people? I'm just kidding. But I hope people don't put preachers on a pedestal. A lot of times, it irks me to no end when I see somebody and they say, you go to Reggie's, so I am Reggie, but you go to Reggie's church. Well, it ain't Reggie's church. It's God's church with God's people in the middle of it. It's not my church. And that's what I'm trying to tell our people is, there's three things I think that I wanted to look at real quickly, and I've never been quickly in a pulpit, but I'm trying to my best. I think that the reason God did not take his life, and the reason he's never, at times when I've been so discouraged, when I've kind of said, I'd like to go on. I have said that. I ain't going to lie to you. I've said, Lord, I'd be better off if it wasn't for leaving my family. I'd be better off just going on and being with you. And I everything's rosy, and I could just hip hop through heaven. I wouldn't have a care in the world. But it ain't that way. We still got a job to do. But I believe with all my heart, God looked behind Elijah. Those things that he did, the things he accomplished, the miracles, and the word, he faithfully preached the word of God in times when you didn't feel like. I don't want to ask for this, but how many times have you got up out of your bed and you just didn't want to preach? I have. I don't care to tell you. I just got up so tired and wore out and discouraged, and I'm not making a difference in anybody's life. I look around and I'm no further than I was. We had 126 people there at one time, and then we, not just a short time after that, we dropped down. We're lucky to get 30, and now we're back to 4. But it don't seem like. I'm just not making a difference in people's life, and that's what the last 8 weeks I've done. I've tried to be an example, because if anybody come in, we've had so many people God has given us. But I think God looked behind him and said, he knew that Elijah had faced danger. He was tired. He was hungry. He was emotionally drained. And there's times when we get discouraged, and I think sometimes it's in our nature to just kind of just give up. But then God. God often refuses to give us what we ask for. I thank God He's never given me those things, all those things that I wanted in my life. I thank God, but He gives us what we need. And I want to show you two things here. I knew that was going to happen. Can't be told that. We were downtown. A church from Ohio asked me. They showed up one day, and they had $20, $50 bills in envelopes to give out to people, and they wanted me to give them out to people that I knew were hurting. Wow! And they called me. That was on a Thursday. On a Friday, he called me, said, "Can you find us a place to set up and give out clothes and shoes and necessities?" So I called June Buchanan Clinic, and they said, "Yeah, tell them to come on and set up and give out all they want to." So we set up there, and so many blessings that day. Set up and started giving stuff out, and this little man from Pine Top, I didn't know him from Adam. I had no idea who he was. He got completely washed out. He didn't get out with the shoes on his feet. He lost everything. I mean, everything he had, he lost. That man showed up to find him a pair of shoes. Wanted to find a pair of shoes, and he got a pair that was too big or too small. I can't remember. They didn't fit, but he said they'll work. And we started asking me about our church and about my sister and her daughter. He reached in his billfold and gave me 2 $1 bills. He said, "Preacher, wait just a minute. You hang around here just a minute. I got something for you." He said, "I was going to give it to veterans." He said, "They lost their building." He said, "I was going to give, but I think you need it worse than them." He went to his car and got me a sandwich bag of pennies. There's not a dime or a nickel or a quarter. Pennies. Something I take for granted. I just throw them anywhere. That man gave me everything he had. And I couldn't, when God looks at us and knows that we need something, He drops somebody in our life to show us hey, you don't realize where I'm at. And then the second thing, I'll never get rid of that bag of pennies, by the way. It's going to be laying on my pulpit from now on. The second thing, I got it. I don't know about you all, but I got one Bible. I'm trying to hurry, I promise. I got a Bible I study out of, and I got a Bible I preach out of. Well, my Bible I preach out of is got bigger letters, and it's easy to find stuff, and I've just got marks all the way through it. But anyway, this was my study Bible. When I went to Maryland that Sunday, right after church, I changed clothes in the bathroom, and I brought my clothes and my study, and I left my bag with my study Bible and my preaching Bible laying in the chair. Both of them got flooded. This right here Bible was twice as big as it is right now. And I love that Bible. It's one that I just, you get comfortable with the Bible. Studying this. And one of my church members took this Bible for 2 weeks. She sat every day. She sat and opened up the pages and took a blow dryer and blow dried it and just blow dried it and blow. 2 weeks she worked. And somebody told me afterwards, said she sat in her chair all day long blow drying that Bible. Now you tell me, when you're all by yourself, you don't know what you're doing. You're just discouraged, and then God sends an angel and says, look what I'm still here. I'm here with you. You don't have to go by yourself. But I also think, build back better. I also think there's things in our building, in our church building, that I've wanted to do for years, and I didn't do them because I didn't have the time. I didn't have the money. I didn't have the help, or I thought I didn't have the help, and I didn't do. I let it go, the back of our church was gommed up because me and another one of my friends got in there and tried to drywall, and we're not drywallers, and there's humps that high, but we tried, but now it's gone, and I've had people from 13 states work on our church.
Amen. Wow.
13 states. I mean, I can't imagine. I couldn't get on the phone and say, would you come here to help me, or would you come to Texas, Michigan, Oklahoma, Colorado, Alabama, Georgia? I couldn't call these people and say, well, y'all come up here and help me. It don't work that way.
Yeah.
But when you got a God like we got,
yeah,
you don't have to worry about that. God has got a place. But I think that God looked beyond what Elijah was looking at. Elijah was looking at he took his eyes, like Peter, he took his eyes off God, and he was looking at his circumstance, which is exactly what I did for a while at church. I looked at our circumstance, the mud, I mean, I've never seen mud like that. Yeah. Really. Just the mud and the stink. You you go home, you can't get it out of your hair, and you can't get it off your hands. And I was looking at my circumstances. But then that man brings that bag of pennies and his $2 bills, and this woman sits in her chair and blow dries my Bible so that I can, I'll probably never use that Bible again, but I'll have that Bible. Yeah. And I had a hard time finding another Bible that I could see today, and this is not one I can really see, but I really think, and the three things that I wanted to say real quick. God looked beyond Elijah, what he was doing right now, and he looked beyond where he was at right now, and he did three things. He refreshed him. God reminded him. Yeah. He reminded me, hey, Reggie, you're not by yourself. Yeah. I'm still in control. The waters are there. I'm still behind you. And then I think the last thing, what Pete's point was, he recommissioned him. I'm right where basically the place I was at. I'm not really, but I was in 1987, starting all over again. That's what I said. I'm starting from scratch again. But I've got what I didn't have back then. I got men now. When we started out, all I had was women. Me and all the women. And you talk about hard to be in church. You have all women and one man, one preacher, man. That's not a good. I'm hush. I lost all my brownie points, didn't I? But I think that he has said, Reggie, we got to start over, but you got a refreshment. You've already been refreshed and you've been recommissioned, and I think that's where I'm at today. God's recommissioned me at the old age that I am. I'm starting over, but I know something that I didn't know back then. I know how God's in behind me. Thank you for listening to me.